Good evening, everyone, and welcome to round 4 of the Thunderwood Sim2Race Championship. This week sees our wonderful competitors arrive at Laguna Seca in a car that, to my knowledge, is not even sold in the US, the Renault Sport Clio 220. The most controversial Clio of all so far, perhaps, in that, unlike its predecessors, it introduced a mandatory 5-door layout. Until now, Renault Sport Clios were not 5 doors. It introduced a turbocharger, which is essentially heresy in the world of Clios. But since 2015, that is the grim reality that we live. And they also are automatic. Can you believe that? They have little flappy paddles on the steering wheel, which is just wrong. But again, this is the reality of the world that we're in, and being a very popular track day machine, that's what our competitors find themselves in today. Now, Laguna Seca is a notoriously difficult circuit to get right. Today we have 9 competitors joining us, 8 from the full-time Thunderwood Sim2Race Championship, and 1 wild card in the form of Mantis Schlögeris here, currently running in 3rd position. Now, our drivers have only just began qualifying merely a few minutes ago, and they have 17 minutes ahead of them to try to claim the best position they can in preparation for the 20-minute race after that, just as we see Mantis here coming through Corkscrew. Now, some people debate how many corners we have at Laguna Seca. Do you consider Corkscrew, the whole complex, as 1 corner? Do you consider it as 3 corners? Some versions of the map have it down as corners 7, then 8, and 8A. And combined, that S-shaped corkscrew is known as, well, the corkscrew. So, if that's the approach we take, this gives us an 11-turn circuit, just as we watch Mantis coming down the curved straight, which is a bit of an oxymoron, but there we go, breaking into turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. Now coming into turn 3, which doesn't have a name because nobody likes it. Same goes for turn 4, which he'll be hitting any minute now. There we go, just coming through turn 3, now leaning on those tires hard. This week we're running the Sport Soft compound, one that we haven't yet touched in Thunderwood Sim2Race. Just as Mantis comes through turn 4, heading into turn 5, and he'll be looking to start braking just under the mother's gantry, which you can see is around where the brake lines start appearing in the tarmac. It's a useful brake marker, and all of your driving lines and assists are switched off for Thunderwood Sim2Race. So like you would do in real life, you'll be looking out for braking markers around you on the circuit, whether that's a distance marker such as the 3 and the 4 you can see in the distance, or things like gantries, signs, curbs, you name it. It's for our drivers to understand and our drivers to use to their full advantage. Just as Mantis here grabs a half-second penalty through Corkscrew. As I mentioned, it's very, very difficult to get right, and in fact, it's one that Mantis has not managed to do. Currently running in 1st is Race Dreamer Rob on provisional pole, although it is early days. He's also picked up 1 second's worth of penalties, but it's early days. It's a 20-minute session, and we will see what he can pull out of the bag. He's been fast all series, so will be very interesting to see what he can do today on a round 4 at Laguna Seca. Now, Laguna Seca is a pretty unusual circuit in terms of its elevation changes, and also just quite how narrow it is. So qualifying position is going to be extremely important here, because it is quite difficult to overtake in terms of placing your car. Although we have 2 very big braking zones. Just now, coming into turn 11, as we watch Race Dreamer Rob Dowsett fire up the start-finish straight into the Andretti hairpin, is the other big braking zone. just as we look here, there are a few different lines you can take. Do you want to take an early apex, a late apex? All of these things will be determined by your braking zone, by the line that you want to take, by where your car is positioned, by the traffic around you, and there are a few viable approaches to taking the Andretti hairpin. So that's probably where our drivers are going to look to be taking the fight to each other, just as Rob Dowsett runs wide there in the corner of turn 3. Now, last week's winner, pole sitter, and fastest lap owner is Samuel Rasool there. Just bring up his little graphic. I'm slightly rusty. It has been a whole week, and I have the memory of a goldfish. But there you go. That's his little graphic. He is back, and he is on song straight away, second fastest, even though we're only a few minutes into the session. He is going to look to build on his record so far of having performed extremely strongly all series. Last time at Goodwood was the first time we had to see some real racecraft from Samuel Rasool, as he was ambushed by Rob Dowsett and Mantas Sluggeris early on in the race and really had to fight back hard to claim back his first place, when until now we'd seen a lights to flag victory from him. Now, one thing that differentiates this E-League from others is that despite the relatively short length of each race, 20 minutes, we have accelerated the tyre wear to mandate a pit stop. Now, crucially, around here what that means is we are using grippy, soft, gummy tyres, which will give our drivers a very fast lap time, but the problem with making them so soft is that they will also wear out very quickly too. So the difference in pace between fresh tyres and worn tyres should be considerable. Furthermore, for the first time in qualifying, we have also switched on tyre wear. So not only are our drivers trying to set a fast lap, they are also trying to manage their tyres. So what that means is, in true time attack style, they will be coming out of the pits, setting a few laps, and diving back into the pits. And how they strategize that, how they choose when to come into the pit lane and out, just as Samuel Rasool goes on 3 wheels and then gets very sideways. Oh my goodness, where is he now? I think he's now quit to come to the pit lane. Maybe let's switch to someone else. Yep, he's in the pit lane. Let's switch to Ollie Wilmot then. So as we were just discussing, we do need to see our drivers managing their tyres now in qualifying as well as during in the race. Just to add a little bit of razzle-dazzle to this, so Ollie Wilmot currently running in third, up there with Samuel Rasool and Rob Dowsett. He has been very, very quick. In fact, all of our drivers have been phenomenally quick all series, very close. In fact, in qualifying at Goodwood last week, our top 5 or 6 drivers were separated by around a second, possibly even less. Our top 3 were by something like a tenth of a second. These drivers are all very close, and they're all very keen to really put on their best performance to win the £250 grant towards real-life motorsport entry fees. Now, some of these drivers here, they're keen track day enthusiasts. Some of them already participate in a level of motorsport, and some of them are complete real-life motorsport novices. That doesn't matter to us. We cater to all, as long as you want to get involved in real car racing, a real car competitive motorsport, and preferably you do own a car with which to go and do motorsport. Then the winner of the series wins some funding towards their entry fees. Now, as we just look then at Ollie Wilmot coming through the Andretti hairpin into the complex of turns 3 and 4, let's perhaps go and have a look at what Tino Schilling is up to, given that we missed him last race. So currently he is back with a very dashing pearlescent purple paint job. That is some great alliteration there. If I may say so myself. Just now coming into the notorious corkscrew. Let's see how he does. Does he run wide? No, he actually takes that perfectly. Just a little bit of apex, little bit of curb at the apex of the middle of the S. Doesn't pick up any penalties, as you can see. Bottles out beautifully through turns 9 and 10. And is just now coming to one of our big braking zones into turn 11, the final corner of the circuit, which is where a lot of our drivers are going to be looking to make overtakes. Takes that beautifully, runs out, takes loads of curb on the exit, but Gran Turismo doesn't seem to mind that, which means we don't mind that either. And across he comes the start-finish line. He fails to improve on his personal best so far, leaving him currently in 4th, 7/10 of a second behind current provisional pole sitter Rob Dowsett, who will be very pleased with his performance so far. Liam Meredith then in proper Renault Sport liquid yellow. Actually, that's not liquid yellow, that's just Liam Meredith yellow, but almost so temptingly close to Renault Sport liquid yellow is Liam Meredith. So he's been very fast, very fighty all series, and he will be no doubt keen to improve on his performance from last week. Now, we'll hear from him later on in tonight's action, but a few drivers have mentioned that they really feel tyre wear is going to be key here at Laguna Seca in the Clios. Now, what happens with these cars is, just as something goes a little bit, there we go. Oh, there we go. He's paused to go into the pit lane to change for new tyres. Here we go. Who's this? Samuel Rasool then, just coming in for maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Life is a mystery. Liam Meredith then back out on track. So tyre wear is going to be a considerable issue on this car because of it's the first time we've used a front-wheel drive car in Thunderwood Sim2Race. And when the tires go on a front-wheel drive car, you are dealing with understeer 24/7. So as soon as these tires start to wear, which they will do being the soft compound, what our drivers are going to have to contend with is really, really chronic understeer. Now, they may choose to play with their brake balance, which is a quirk where Gran Turismo just assumes every car ever has brake balance, and we have no way of switching that off, so our drivers are more than welcome to use that if they want to. They'll also really be trying to move the weight of the car around, trail braking using their weight transfer, to try to manage the understeer of these cars and still keep on strategy. Now, there's one mandatory pit stop during the race. They can take that whenever they like. Most drivers will want to take that at around the midpoint of the 20-minute race, but how early or late they do that is completely up to them. We saw some drivers successfully coming in early for fresh tires, putting them right at the back, and then benefiting from loads of clean air in front of them as everybody in front, the whole lot of traffic came in for tires, clearing the way for them like Moses parting the sea. So that's one approach to it. If you wish, you can pit in the middle of the race, and if you wish, you can even pit towards the end of the race, putting you on fresh tires, whilst everyone else is scrabbling around on worn rubber. So that's something our drivers are going to have to be dealing with. Historically speaking, when the tires have worn in other cars we've used, that has given them a tendency towards oversteer, which is hugely entertaining and fun for all involved. This time around in these front-wheel drive hatchbacks, we have understeer being the key symptom of excessive tire wear, and everyone hates that. So it'll be interesting to see how our drivers contend with these very undesirable driving conditions. In fact, some have said this is probably the toughest challenge they've had to deal with yet, especially given the 90-degree, how tight a lot of these corners are. We'll really be testing the chassis and the tires on these cars. It isn't a fast-flowing kind of circuit like perhaps Goodwood was, where maybe you could actually drive around the understeer. Here, our drivers will really... just as Liam Meredith jumps into the pit lane then, our drivers are really going to have to be managing these tires and really dealing with understeer a lot at this circuit. So let's see how that goes. Now then, Rob Dowsett currently still in first place, provisional pole with 5 minutes remaining, a whole 3/10 ahead of Samuel Rasool. You can just see in the distance coming into turn 6 ahead of him, and on to the Rahal Straight. Turn 6, there you can see the markers, 3, 2, 1, and in he turns at around the 2 board. Again, it's up for our drivers to choose their markers, where they brake, where they turn, where they get on the power, because any kind of driving line assist, as well as all other assists, are forced off for all of our drivers. With the exception of ABS, just as you can see Rob Dowsett's suspension really lifting as the Clio plunges through the corkscrew. Those of you who are lucky enough to have visited Laguna Seca will know just how ridiculously steep Laguna Seca really is. If you've walked it, cycled it, been fortunate enough to have driven it, you will know that that is a very intense drop, and you could just see that being portrayed on Rob's suspension as he really fell through the chicane, and just now taking shovelfuls of gravel on his way out of turn 11. Now let's see, does he manage to improve on his personal best? That is a no. So with 4 minutes remaining, it's going to be tricky to really see any kind of big change to the running order, because our drivers need to factor in the time of an in-lap and an out-lap after having put on fresh tires, and then having completed their out-lap, only then will they be able to start a timed lap. So if anyone's looking to really seriously improve on their position now, they may struggle to do so. Let's then look at James Partridge, currently running in 8th place ahead of Nick Horn in the grey car over here, 3 seconds away from provisional pole. James Partridge, 0.3 seconds ahead of that, and just in front of him is Oliver White in the red car, the red number 24. This time, dashingly colored with yellow highlights too. Now, the rules of Thunderwood Sim2Race, essentially to make my life easier, I guess, as a commentator, but also for you as the viewers, is our drivers need to stick to one specific look throughout the series. That's both in terms of their color and in terms of their number, and also just to keep things clean and consistent, no full liveries are allowed. So that's to prevent people, you know, someone will have a really slick livery and someone will have a livery that looks a little bit crap. So we don't want that. That does not look good. But what that does mean is that within the confines of Gran Turismo's paint options, you can really have a fiddle around with painting different parts of the car in different colors and so on, which most of our drivers haven't done. But you can just see Oliver White here being a little bit more ambitious with that. This week's wildcard, then, is Mantas Schluggeris, who performed very strongly last week at Goodwood, a circuit that, to my knowledge, he has driven in real life. Actually, same as Oliver White, the driver we were just looking at, and predictably, he performed very well there. However, at Laguna Seca, considering we have 2 minutes of qualifying remaining, he's perhaps not running quite where he would hope to be. Currently down in 6th, and 1.3 seconds away from provisional pole. Race Dreamer Rob then, currently in the pit lane. He will be just trying to get a sneaky outlap. Just, actually, as we can see Samuel Rasool ahead of him, both of them now at an outlap. They'll be looking to complete that before the checkered flag falls, giving them one final attempt to attack a fast pole position claiming lap. Just as, oh my goodness, who is that coming off? Is that Nick Horn? Nick Horn then, oh my goodness, he is all over the place. Oh no, what's going on? And he's back in the pit lane. That is, he has had enough. There you go, he's back in the pits. That is probably the remainder of the session for him. So he will be taking his 9th place, looking unlikely to set any more laps within the remaining time. Let's look at the fight up front then. Race Dreamer Rob Dowsett still on provisional pole by 0.3 of a second ahead of Samuel Rasool then. Just coming through corkscrew, you can see his suspension up to fun and games as well, just as we did with Rob Dowsett earlier on. That corner complex really testing the suspension on this little hatchback. Just as, who's that behind him? Let's just cycle through these, because I don't know. Who was the black guy? Oh, look, who's that? Oh, Mantas Schluggeris then, just coming... Okay, that's not who we were looking at. Doesn't matter. Oh, that would have been Rob Dowsett. There we go. Rob Dowsett then, hot on the tail of Samuel Rasool. 20 seconds remaining until the checkered flag falls, meaning that they probably have one more attempt at a flying lap. This is the one that's really going to count. It's these two. Now, Samuel Rasool has so far been dominant in qualifying, but so far, with 10 seconds remaining before the checkered flag falls, he is 0.3 off provisional pole, a position that he has not recently found himself in. As, there we go, Race Dreamer Rob calls it a day as well. Samuel Rasool then just trying to set one final flying lap. Rob Dowsett perhaps having misstepped on his first sector and deciding he's not going to be able to improve on his personal best and just aborting that lap. Samuel Rasool then, All eyes on him to see whether he'll manage to claim provisional pole. And just behind him, Oliver Wilmot then, a mere 0.4 seconds away from provisional pole, but also looking unlikely to improve. So, that is the likely order for the race, just as our drivers finish up their laps. Ollie Wilmot here just cruising around to finish his final lap. Tino Schilling then in 4th place, a mere half a second away from provisional pole. And what that means is our top four are divided by less than a second. 5th place, Liam Meredith is in, 5th, 1 second away from provisional pole. Then Mansa Schluggeris, 1.3 seconds off pole. Following that, we have Oliver White, 1.6 seconds off pole. Then we have James Partridge and Nick Horn, also in the pit lane, coming back on track for some reason, even though he's going to get thrown right back onto the grid for the race to start. So perhaps he's just getting some final moments of practice in. So then, what usually happens is Gran Turismo itself polices our track limits, and we have our noble stewards on board. This week it is the mighty and wonderful John Birrell, who will be watching the cameras with eagle eyes to look for any dodgy driving. So track limits are policed by Gran Turismo. Contact and racecraft are policed by actual human beings, because currently video games and simulations do not seem to be too capable of judging these very nuanced things. So, now it is time for the race. Thunderwood Sim2Race Round 4. This time around we have false start check in place. Our drivers are going to have to manage their starts themselves, unlike the usual Gran Turismo format, which holds the brake for each driver. So, race streamer Rob then starting on pole, Samuel Rasool filling the camera for some reason. Okay, the camera's just really zoomed in on everyone. What can you do? Are we going to have any false starts? Let's see, with this new rule change for... Oh, there we go, loads of wheel spin. Samuel Rasool gets an incredible start. Just as everyone now bolts into Andretti, Samuel Rasool then, with a clean getaway, manages to leapfrog James Partridge. Oh, sorry, Rob Dowsett, who is now fallen victim to Tino Schilling, just giving him a tap up the inside. Ollie Wilmot then tries to hold it around the outside. Just as everyone bunches up really close, Samuel Rasool is now desperately going to try to build on that gap as everyone gets a little bit of lift off understeer up on 2 wheels over the curb through turns 3, heading into 4. Everyone's still incredibly bunched up. Samuel Rasool then with an incredible start. Rob Dowsett perhaps ruining his performance so far. The uphill nature of that start making things very tricky to nail. Samuel Rasool then, as per... Oh, there we go. He looks up the inside, doesn't quite make it stick. Ollie Wilmot there maintaining 3rd place, running incredibly closely to Rob Dowsett. Has a look around the outside just as we now come into turn 6 onto the Rahal Straight. Oh, as Samuel Rasool runs a little bit wide, race streamer Rob just looks... There we go, they're side by side coming into the corkscrew. That is a very precarious position to be in. And he manages to take that place. Straight lines the chicane, but perhaps no wheels were dipped off the track. We'll see if Gran Turismo penalizes that. You can see him leaning on the tires hard as they just flatten as he starts to come into the final sector of the circuit. Turn 10 now into turn 11, the other big braking zone of the circuit. Samuel Rasool tries to have a look but doesn't quite make it stick, so then Rob Dowsett reclaims his 1st place to finish lap 1 ahead of the field. What answer does Samuel Rasool have, just as we see Timo Schilling there in the background flashing his lights, just ahead of Liam Meredith and Ollie Wilmot, who's fallen down to 5th place. What has happened to him? He had an incredible qualifying, up in 3rd, 2nd row, right where he wanted to be. Sadly, he's fallen back into the pack as Tino Schilling, after a week out, jumps way back up to 3rd place, doing very well indeed. Just as you can see, Ollie Wilmot there then, just trying to claim that place back from Liam Meredith. He is going to be very keen to claim back his provisional podium. He would have been over the moon to start in 3rd place. That's a great position for the race, but unfortunately, given you can just see damage all over the car as well, given how fast all of these drivers are and just how close they all are, one mistake and they're on you. And that's what Ollie Wilmot now finds himself dealing with. Just up front then, if we look again, up front we have race streamer Rob, then Rob Dowsett, currently running in 1st place, taking loads of curb as he should. That is well within the spirit of the regulations, racing hard but fair, and that was hard but fair. Samuel Rasool then just trying to ride that slipstream and almost looking up the inside. That would have been a very ballsy move. That would have probably ended in tears, just as you can see him weaving around, trying to find the best line through here. You can just see the Clio of Rob Dowsett doing what Clios do best, getting up on 3 wheels as they come through the corners, also known as tripoding in the industry, and I'm sure there are other names for it too as well, that I forget. Anyway, there we go. Through turn 11 then, Rob Dowsett maintains his 1st place. Samuel Rasool looking as keen as ever. And crucially, as these two are fighting each other, they're going to be chewing through their tires like bubblegum, putting them back towards the pack of hounds, harassing them behind. As we can see then, Tino Schilling just in the background there, really looking to make an impression on the front too. You can see little bits of damage around his car, getting really involved in the fights to begin with, but so far keeping his nose relatively clean, running in 3rd place ahead of Liam Meredith and Oliver Wilmot. Manta Schluggeris then, just 1 second behind Ollie Wilmot. He performed very strongly at Goodwood, as we've discussed, and he is now just perhaps a little bit out of his comfort zone at Laguna Seca, a circuit where it's historically not one of his favorites. And so we can see Ollie Wilmot then just trying to make a move around Liam Meredith, doesn't quite make it stick. So what that means though is while those two were tripping over each other, Mantis Schluggeris manages to gain 0.7 of a second, putting him right on Ollie Wilmot's tail as they come through nose to tail, 3 in a row like little ducks into the corkscrew as Ollie Wilmot looks up the inside of Liam Meredith. Mantis Schluggeris there having a look as well. He is unable to make an impression. However, Ollie Wilmot then, running wide, putting it off the track, loses out both to Liam Meredith and to Mantis Schluggeris, now falling back down to 6th place. Samuel Rasool then, we missed the overtaking move. He is now in 1st position, having somewhere along the line overtaken race dreamer Rob Dowsett, who is now coming into turn 11, looking to make an impression there, unable to make it stick, but sitting comfortably in Samuel's slipstream. And he will be looking to really harass him coming into the Andretti hairpin at the end of the start-finish straight. He's looking around the outside, isn't quite able to make anything stick there. Taking a different line to Samuel Rasool. Samuel Rasool with a very defensive line. What that means is he runs a little bit wide, just allowing Rob Dowsett through. Side by side into turn 3. Oh, Samuel Rasool just manages to claim that. That was a great bit of racemanship from him. But what that means is coming now into turn 4, again they are side by side, split by a mere 1/10 of a second as Rob Dowsett looks up the inside. Tino Schilling, they're falling off the track just behind them. Nothing to split. There we go, as Rob Dowsett looks up the inside of Samuel Rasool, puts himself right where he wants to be and manages to claim that place. For now, there's nothing Samuel Rasool can do to fight back. Tino Schilling there also having a look, just as these two are busy fighting each other. They have fallen well back into his grip. So Samuel Rasool now under pressure from Tino Schilling as well, who now puts himself in a position to overtake into corkscrew as they come in side by side, but doesn't quite manage to make it stick. Samuel Rasool oh, this is too intense. Okay. Oh my goodness, what a fight, what a fight. I mean, I'm sure there's great stuff happening elsewhere up and down the field, but we have not seen a fight like this up front in all of Thunderwood Sim2Race. We had something similar happen at Goodwood last week, but I don't think anything quite as intense or long running as this. We're 7 minutes in, nearly at half race distance, and there's nothing to divide our top 3. This is absolutely incredible then. Just as race streamer Rob Dowsett still running in first place. Samuel Rasool there, you can just see tucking into his slipstream, looking to make a move, but Rob naturally taking a very defensive line, sitting on the inside, forcing Samuel Rasool out wide, which he dutifully runs, and you can just see Tino Schilling there trying to take advantage of Samuel's forced wide line, but he just had a cheeky little look down the inside into turn 3, but unable to make that work. Tino Schilling there really trying to fight to hang on to these two. You can see him running wide there just on the exit of turn 3 as they come through turn 4 in perfect formation. You can see there are millimeters dividing Samuel and Rob up front. As you can see now, Ollie Wilmot in the distance catching up to them as well, just as Tino Schilling gives a little love kiss to Samuel Rasool. There's absolutely nothing dividing these guys. This is incredible. And crucially, while this is going on, Ollie Wilmot there is closing in on them. So Samuel Rasool then falling a little bit further back, now half a second behind Rob Dowsett in first place, and right in the targets of Tino Schilling there, who will be keen to really pressure him into making some kind of mistake. You can just see Samuel's car there really quite battered. Nothing too serious. We saw a little bit of argy-bargy, a little bit of door banging, but nothing too sinister yet. And as far as I can see, it looks like everything should stand. Hard but fair, hard but fair. As you can just see Ollie Wilmot there in the distance, Liam Meredith, Mantas Schluggeris, and then just behind him we have Oliver White as well. Everyone's still very bunched up. As you can see on the map in the top right corner, everyone is still basically on the same sector, on the same straight. We have someone there, straggler, coming through the chicane, but otherwise everyone is on the same straight right now. Everyone is running very closely to each other, and crucially, our driver's tires are going to start wearing off. Just as we can see Samuel Rasool then trying a different approach, trying to pitch it around the outside, but wise to it, trying to go around the outside to put himself on the inside for turn 3. Rob Dowsett, having already experienced that once, is wise to that, takes a defensive line through turn 3 as well, leaving him clear for turn 4, putting Samuel Rasool on a compromised line through turn 3, having to run wide and falling ever closer back towards Tino Schilling. What can I say? This is very exciting stuff up front. So much so that as much as I want to show the other guys up and down the field, we can't take our eyes off this. This is incredible. But I will quickly flick through. There we go. Here's Mantas Schluggeris on his own. Liam Meredith trying to... There we go. He's lapping too. James Partridge, welcome back. No, actually, we had him last week. Ollie White then just running a little bit further back. And then we... Nick Horn having a pretty bad time as well. Samuel Rasool then has somehow... Oh my goodness, we missed the crucial moment where he's retaken the lead. Samuel Rasool then back in front with a half-second lead already. We will... it would be interesting to have seen where that move happened, especially... Oh, as they all come into the pit lane, our top 3 all pit simultaneously. Top 4 are now in the pits. Here we go. Race streamer Rob Dowsett in first place. Leah Meredith is now in the pits. Everyone apart from James Partridge, Oliver White, and Nick Horn are in the pits. So there will be no strategy coming into play here. Everyone is just in the pit lane. So what we now see is James Partridge having leapfrogged everyone to take first place. Naturally, he still needs to do a pit stop. Our drivers are still looking to pit. We can just see Ollie Wilmot here then getting his brand new tires. There we go, hands are up, Lollipop Man is out of the way, and off they go. They are still running in formation right next to each other. Oliver White then saying thank you very much, I will take that second place while all of you monkeys are in the pit lane. And he will enjoy running up front, I know it. Oh, there we go, he's fallen now. There we go. So, as you can see, the pit lane exit takes a very tight inside line through turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. So what that means is they have a significantly shorter distance to travel, meaning that although it looked like Oliver White was ahead coming across the start-finish line, he is forced around the circuit to take a much wider line through turn 2 than our friends in the pit lane. So he's now fallen back to 6th. James Partridge then enjoying his temporary short-lived first place until he jumps into the pits. Meanwhile, all equipped with fresh tires and with 8 minutes remaining, that's it. We are now fighting until the flag, and there is 0.5 seconds from first place corrected for pit stop Samuel Rasool, and between him and Rob Dowsett. Tino Schilling just ever so... Oh, there we go. He just picks up a penalty there. Driving standards out of the window. These guys are fighting way too hard for that. And luckily it's something that we can leave to Gran Turismo to police. This is not our problem. Samuel Rasool then still up in first place. 0.3 seconds ahead of Rob Dowsett. What's going on? Oh my goodness, this is all far too close, far too close. Just as we can see then, they are coming up to catch James Partridge, who is still out on his original set of tires. He'll be throwing away lap time left, right and center. He's going to be really hemorrhaging time at this point on those severely worn tires. But crucially, the longer he can make his first stint last, the fresher his tires will be at the end of the race. So it's an equally viable strategy, and we'll see whether that pays dividends. Meanwhile then, Ollie Wilmot, we can see he's currently running in 5th, and let's just hear what he had to say after last week's race.
I made a few mistakes in the race last week, so hopefully I can avoid doing that today. I think the key for this race is going to be managing the tyre wear on the front tyres due to being a front-wheel drive car.
So naturally, tyre wear has been shown, as predicted, to be a huge factor in this race, just as we can see James Partridge there running way offline. At least I think that was James Partridge. As it turns out, blue and purple are very similar colors, especially with the pearly version that Tino Schilling has, which has a significant blue flake in there too. As we can just see James Partridge now struggling with his tires, falling further back still, and he will surely be keen to come in for a pit stop at some point soon. Just as we see then Samuel Rasool losing out time to race streamer Rob Dowsett there, just taking one massive look up the inside, but unable to make a move. You can just see him really clobbering that curb, getting up on two wheels as he comes through. Right, so there we go. So Oliver White has left the room. So we have our first retirement of the race. Just as we can see now, we can just see Rob Dowsett flashing his lights at Samuel Rasool, which is obviously completely within the rules, just trying to put a little bit of pressure on him, and it's a commonly done endurance racing trick, just to let your opponent know that you are actually right behind them. Maybe consider getting out of the way, or I will get you out of the way. As these two are still fighting nose to tail, millimeters dividing them. What a race. Oh my goodness, this is incredible. Just as we see then Rob Dowsett following Samuel Rasool through turn 4, divided by only 0.4 of a second there, running very closely indeed. You can just see James Partridge now, an old man, his gamer tag, currently in 8th place in the pit stops, having jumped onto the Super Sport soft tire. And now ready for his final stint, where he will be on the freshest tires of all, an enviable position to be in. Just as we see then Samuel Rasool running wide, which will presumably, look at how close Rob Dowsett can now get, just kicking up a little cloud of dust as he runs wide on entry into the chicane, really pressuring Samuel Rasool on the inside then, who's forced out wide, just mindful of a car there and unwilling to cut him off. He was forced to take an unfortunate line through the chicane, which has resulted in him receiving a penalty. Bearing in mind how close our drivers are running, how small the gaps are, a penalty like this could really make or break one of our drivers' days. As he now serves the penalty, slows right down, and in doing so yields that place back to Rob Dowsett. There are now 4 minutes of this race remaining. Rob Dowsett has reclaimed first place, 0.7 seconds ahead of Samuel Rasool, who perhaps yielded a little bit more than he would have liked to. Do apologize, I'm just fiddling with the microphone. I shouldn't do that, but it was in the way. So there we go. So that's what's happening with these guys. Now, meanwhile, if we have a look at Leah... Oh, what was happening? Leah Meredith there. Nope, not in the fight. That was actually Ollie Wilmot and Tino Schilling. Look there, right in the fight. And in fact, let's listen to what Tino Schilling said coming into this race.
So last week I missed out on the round as my Logitech pedals were playing up. Got new ones, yay! So back into it does mean that I've used my drop round, so it's going to be tough from here on in.
So he was unable to make last round, and he is back with a vengeance, running in 3rd place. What a comeback, what a comeback. And he is doing exactly as he hoped. He is currently on schedule for a podium. Whether that happens or not, we will have to see. Back at the front of the grid, we still have Rob Dowsett then, just leading Samuel Rasool. There is a feather's width separating these two, just as he looks down the inside of Corkscrew, and crucially, as we enter the final minutes, the final seconds of the race, these moves could quite possibly start getting a little bit desperate. As he now looks aggressively up the inside of Rob Dowsett into turn 10, doesn't quite make anything stick, but he is very prominently letting him know that he is here and he is fighty. There we go, sticks it up the inside of turn 11. What an incredible move there. Perhaps catching Rob Dowsett snoozing, who was not expecting that move. His line was not defensive. He left that wide open. Samuel Russell saw that and he took it, and you can just see him angrily flashing his lights to say, hey, listen, that's not on. You ambushed me, but this is racing, baby. And now he's got to try to claim that place back from 0.4 seconds behind. Meanwhile, Liam Meredith then down in 5th. There he is fighting hard with Mantis Schloggeris, who he just allows back through there side by side, just coming out of the Andretti hairpin into turn 3. And in fact, let's just hear what he said after last week's race.
Last time out, the result was a little bit disappointing for sure, so looking to improve on that next time. Don't really want to get involved in those fights, and didn't really have the pace last time out to keep up with the front runners, so trying to turn that around this time. I think this race is going to be all about the tyre wear, trying to manage those tyres so you can get the lap times all the way to the end. I think whoever does that the best will be fighting right at the sharp end.
So likewise, same as Oliver, fearful of the tyre wear today. And as we expected, as our drivers predicted, it has played really considerably into the metagame of today's race. And we can see all drivers coming into the pit lane at the same second, trying to stretch out those tires as much as they could, and all simultaneously jumping into the pits because they just hate driving with the kind of understeer that this scenario throws up. So they all jumped in at the first possibility, which meant they all came out of the pit lane running in exactly the same formation. Now, as Samuel Russell then just crosses the line to start his final lap, what that means is Rob Dowsett has 1 lap to try to make up that 1 second gap and claim first position back. Whatever happens, both drivers have fought incredibly hard for this result. Samuel Russell then keen to add to his hat trick so far and add to his ever-extending list of wins in Thunderwood Sim2Race. Race streamer Rob Dowsett is going to be keen to be the first driver of all the series so far to deny Samuel Russell a victory. As we now enter our final lap, everyone is now set to finish in the next few seconds. As Samuel Russell then just comes into turn 5 to now exit onto turn 6, the Rahal Straight. Rob Dowsett will be very eager to make a move, just as you can see a little bit of lift-off oversteer that these Clios are so well known for. Coming through turn 6, Rob Dowsett is far further back than he would want to be, 1.7 seconds off the lead, and he's going to have to do something really special to try to claim that back. Mantis Schloggeris then just able to hold off Liam Meredith coming into the chicane, separated by 2.7 seconds, and looking very likely to keep his 5th place. Samuel Russell then just coming into turn 11, the final corner, 2.5 seconds clear of Rob Dowsett, who figured he will not make mistakes. He'll play it safe and bring it home in 2nd place. As the checkered flag comes out for Samuel Russell, flashing his lights, claiming his 4th consecutive win of Thunderwood Sim2Race. Ahead of race streamer Rob Dowsett then, with an incredibly impressive performance to take a very hard-fought 2nd. Ollie Wilmot there in 3rd place. Consecutively fast all season, and probably quite happy with where he's finished. There we go. So these are our finishing results. Victory then, congratulations, goes to Samuel Russell, who holds up the trophy, which was incredibly well earned.